No success in the world can compensate for failure in the home. That's why Club Wealth was founded, to help driven, successful, and busy real estate agents like you double their business while building a strong, balanced home life. Join us each week as high-producing agents and team leaders share their stories and unpack the principles and systems they've used to double, triple, and even quadruple their business while enjoying greater quality of life. And now, here's the latest episode of Club Wealth TV.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Michael Ellingson with Club Wealth Coaching and Consulting. And as you know, I'm one of the coaches here at Club Wealth. And very happy to be with you today. I am joined on Club Wealth TV today by my co-hosts, Mr. Brian Curtis, who's also one of our Club Wealth coaches. Brian is a rock star. And by Cherie Benjamin, Coach Cherie Benjamin. Both Brian and Cherie are rock star coaches at Club Wealth. They both coach tiers 4 and higher. And there's a reason for it, because they're ballers. And so we're super excited today to bring to you something that has not happened in a while. We've been getting some questions about, all right, Michael, we keep hearing that, you've listed and sold over 100 homes per month, yada, 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 whoop-de-freaking-do, like that sounds all great and fine and good, but, and it's all awesome, 750 listings at one time in active and pending status, whoop-de-do. What does that mean? How did you get there? All that kind of stuff. And so what we thought was today, we just give Brian and Cherie a chance to grill me, put me in the hot seat, make me uncomfortable, dig deep. Let's find out not only how did our team accomplish that, but more importantly, how can our viewers' teams accomplish that? So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Brian and Cherie.
Brian, can we cue the uncomfortable music? Where's our hot seat music? Dun, dun, dun.
All right, I'll go first. So I was told that I get to go first this morning. So I'm going to ask you a little, it won't be a hard one, but I think it's an important one because to me, everything focuses on basically three things. Focuses on your physiology, what you're physically doing with yourself at any given point in time. It focuses on your language, what you're talking about to yourself. And then it focuses on your focus or your beliefs. So I want to know what somebody has to believe to sell 100 houses a month. Because here's the thing, we can copy your activities, but activities are one thing. What's a belief of somebody who sells 100 houses a month?
Okay, so all right. So first of all, I've got these written down. You said physiology, beliefs, and what was the third one?
Your language, what you're saying to others, to yourself. So we'll just call that the triad, for the lack of a better way to put it.
I love it. These are great. I've actually, nobody's ever asked me this before, so I actually love it. Okay, so beliefs. What do you have to believe? Well, I mean, I think the first thing that's obvious is you got to believe that you can do it, right? I mean, you've got to actually believe that you can do whatever it is you set out to do. And what is Napoleon Hill said that whatever the mind can believe and achieve, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve, right? So first you got to think about, okay, what's possible? Like what can happen? And then I've got to believe that I actually can do that thing. And so for me, it was, okay, I didn't start off saying, I believe I can do 1,000 units a year. I started off, it definitely did not start off there. It started off thinking, okay, I've heard some people make $100,000 a year selling real estate. Maybe I can do that too, right? So I started to convince myself that it was possible to do 100,000 a year, then that it was actually possible for me to do 100,000 a year. And that was, it's funny. It took me, I was in high school when I finally determined this for myself, when I finally believed that I could do it. But it took, and I hate to even say this, it's embarrassing, but it's the truth for most of us, I think. I actually had to meet somebody that was doing that level of production. And it was weird because there wasn't a lot of people doing that around me anyway, at least not in my office. I know there were other people in the marketplace doing that, but I had no idea who they were or that they even existed. All I knew is there was one guy in my office that was this most arrogant person I've ever met. And the guy was constantly telling me how, I do $125,000 a year. I'm a big deal. Like today I'd be like, really? Wow. Like, good for you, dude. Like, that's a good week. But that guy was like all enamored with himself because he was doing the $100,000 a year. and walking around the office like the big man on campus. And here I was, this high schooler, trying to figure my way out in real estate. And finally, I'm like, dude, if that guy, and I almost used a bad word, but if that knucklehead can do this, I can freaking do this. And from that day forward, I knew I was going to do at least $100,000 a year. And then once I got to that level, I did the same thing, with $250,000 a year. Then it was $500,000 a year. Then it was $1 million a year. And over time, I started to believe that, hey, I can do a whole bunch of stuff. I can really take this to as far as I want to take it. And the first time I broke $1 million in GCI was where my mind really expanded. And I really started to believe that, hey, wait a minute. If I can do $1 million a year, maybe I can do $5 million a year. Maybe I can do $10 million a year. Who knows what's possible? And it's funny because it's just like with Roger Bannister, right? Roger Bannister was the first guy to break the 4-minute mile. Everybody previous to Roger Bannister thought that if you broke the 4-minute mile, your heart would literally explode by breaking the 4-minute mile. And Roger Bannister does it, and all of a sudden the next year, and I can't remember the exact number, but it was like 20.
59.
Was it 59? Is that what it was? Like 59 people the very next year broke the 4-minute mile. And guess what? Nobody's heart exploded. Nobody. Everybody lived to tell about it later. I mean, and so it's just like, dude, the problem that most agents have is right here. It's what's in your own mind. You guys got to get past it yourself. I love it. I posted recently in the Facebook group, that I'm struggling to understand why anybody would want to be a solo agent. And I got some pretty interesting responses. And frankly, some of them were not all that friendly. Some of them were like, why would I want to be a team and blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, dude, here's what I really think. I really think that the big problem is it's up here. I think people don't believe that they're good enough to have a team. I think people don't believe they're smart enough to have a team. I feel like they believe that, to have a team is more work, it's less profitable, whatever. And here's the reason why I think these people believe it. Because they've never done it right to begin with, and they've only experienced people doing it wrong. And so therefore that becomes their belief and their mindset. So I guess if you want to change that mindset, stop hanging around with idiots. Stop hanging around with morons that only think negative things about building a real business, and start hanging out with people that make the kind of money you want to make and that are building a real business, and that will change your mindset.
All right. So I got a question for you. Why Club Wealth?
Why did we build it?
Yep. Why Club Wealth? Right. It's like, what?
That's
why
kind of vague. I don't know what's
what prompted you to found Club Wealth?
Well, it's interesting because Club Wealth didn't start off as a real estate agent coaching company. Club Wealth started off as, when I was a real estate agent, I wanted to have an entity that I could use to teach people how to invest in real estate. So I was teaching essentially potential clients of mine how to go out and buy and hold some rental properties so that they can build wealth for themselves, thus Club Wealth, right? And then during that process somewhere, it worked really well, by the way, and got a lot of people to do business with us. And that's a great model for those of you who are looking for ways to work with investors. That really, really worked well for us. But essentially, over time, I started getting questions from people saying, hey, I would like to have you teach me how to sell real estate at a higher level like you're doing. And that's that was the impetus for starting Club Wealth. But then we took a sabbatical, right? In 2011, I sold the company and took a sabbatical, and it was going to be a year. It turned out to be 3.5 years. And I started getting calls from a lot of our past clients, like Jesse Zagorski and others that had done business with us, saying, hey, we want you to get back in the business. And about that time, I get a call from Brian Curtis saying, hey, by the way, I want you to coach our team. I'm like, well, I'm really kind of not really doing that right now. He's like, no, you don't understand. Like, you're going to coach my team. He's like, I've talked to several people. They tell me that you're the guy that I need to talk to. You're going to coach my team. I'm like, okay. And so we got going again. But when we did it, and it wasn't quite that simple. There's a lot of thought and prayer and debate and discussion with Tara about whether or not this was the right thing for us. But what it really came down to was, as well as we did in real estate, I really feel like we were born for coaching. I feel like that's what I was put here on this planet to do. I don't feel like I was put here on this planet to sell a whole bunch of houses. I get more joy in my life out of being a coach than I do out of selling real estate. So that's why.
Okay. That's an awesome answer. So I want to go back to something real quick. I'm going to ask you the flip side of my original question.
Okay.
when you made less than $100,000, what did you believe?
Oh man. Okay. So
let me ask a better question. What were some of your limiting beliefs? Because I think that's more important. Not the things that pushed you over the top, but what were the things that kept you here until you said, "Oh crap, that's BS," and you got here?
Well, I think the first place to start with that is what caused a lot of my limiting beliefs. And I'll tell you, a lot of it was my folks. And don't get me wrong, I love my parents. I've got wonderful parents. They've done everything they could to give me the best life that they could. They've really worked hard to help me have a better life, to teach me to be great parents, and they have. That being said, there was a period of about 10 months where I didn't speak to my parents, and I'll tell you why. Because at the beginning of that, toward when I first got into real estate, I was the number one listing agent in my market, or in my office, rather, not my market, just my office. And all that really meant was I was less broke than the other agents in the office, right? Sure. And so I had all these 40-year-old plus ladies and men in the office that were all mad at me because I was out listing houses at 8 and 10% because I didn't know any better. But here's the thing, I was still freaking broke. And my parents kept telling me, they're like, look, you should go get a real job. Go get a job at McDonald's. You'd make more money. And what was sad was they were right? I mean, no joke. Like, I literally would have made more money had I gone and gotten a job at the drive-thru, learning great scripts like, would you like to supersize that, right?
Only working 40 hours a week.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so, I mean, that was, for me, that was a big deal. And I'll tell you what really drove me. It wasn't even the hope for gain. It was, I'll be darned if you're going to tell me I can't do something. I'll be darned if you're going to tell me I can't accomplish something that I think I can accomplish. And just to piss them off and just to prove them wrong, I decided, screw this. I'm going to go be successful with this. Now, there was more to it than that. Like, as a kid, when I was 12 years old, my parents got a divorce. And so you talked about your big reason why. Well, when my parents got divorced, I was playing soccer. I was 12 years old. I played on a team that was a really good team locally, and I got noticed by a team that traveled all over the world. And at 12 years old, they wanted me to play on this team that was a 14 to 16-year-old team, and they wanted me to start as their center forward. So I was obviously not in the condition then that I am now, right? And my parents couldn't afford the cleats, let alone the travel. And so I wasn't able to play. And I'll tell you what, I was heartbroken as a kid because I really loved playing soccer. And I said to myself in that moment, I said, you know what, no matter what, my kids are never going to have to make the decision between doing what they love or doing what they can afford to do. I want to make sure that my kids have the option to do whatever it is that their heart desires, and money's never going to be the obstacle. And so that, combined with my parents telling me, no, you can't do it, go get a job at McDonald's, was really my catalyst for developing a belief that I can do it. And then, it's funny, I had the other one was a title guy that told me, literally, if you can do 100,000, this was his exact words. And I don't even think he's in the business today, shocker. But he said to me, he says, if you can do $100,000 a year selling real estate, I'll go downtown Seattle and I'll stand in the Macy's window and I'll bend over, I'll pull my pants down, and I'll kiss my own rear end. And man, I'll tell you what, man, that guy was so rude to me in that moment and so arrogant. It just, again, was a part of that driver for, look, screw you. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go be successful in spite of you.
So you've got that sign in the back, and it goes to everyone that joins coaching. Where did it come from for you?
You are talking about this one right here. It says, no success in the world can compensate for failure in the home. Well, first of all, it actually is a quote from a guy named David O. McKay, who's a Mormon guy. And the reason I don't quote him on it is because I don't think he would care. First of all, I think that he cares more that people hear the message than where it came from. And I think that if people were to see, oh, that's some Mormon guy said that, they would discount it as less important in their lives. But I will tell you this, I don't care whether someone's religious or not, what religion they are, none of that matters. What matters is, do you believe it? And I do. And I'll tell you that there was a time in my life, and it was when I was in high production, prior to really getting to the top, when we were on that way up to the top, I forgot about this. And I did not treat my family the way I should. And I had some challenges with just my behavior toward my family and becoming more interested in the business than I was in my family. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be actively engaged in your business. I'm just saying that I I would be with my family and all I was thinking about was work, or I'd be with my family and I was constantly doing work, or I just wouldn't be with my family at all because it was more fun to go do work, than change diapers or whatever it was that needed to be done with the kids at that point in time. And that becomes, the world becomes very, very appealing because at work, I was getting all these accolades and people are like, oh my gosh, you're the man, and look how great you're doing. And it's, oh, Michael's a rock star. And then I'd come home and Tara's like, dude, you're not all that. You're just Michael. Like, what's your issue? Like, freaking, go do the dishes, take the laundry down, or, go take the garbage out or something. Like, that wasn't giving me the kind of fulfillment that the business was giving me. And so it became very attractive to focus more on the business. And I'll tell you that I don't believe that's where true happiness really comes. I think true happiness really comes from the family and from the things that need to happen in your home. And the business is there to provide you with the opportunities that you get to have at home. Like, when you go on vacation as a family, where does that money come from, right? It comes from the business. When you have a roof over your head, when you have food, all those things are important. But guess what? Your kids would rather spend more time with you than go to Hawaii with you. I mean, that's just my personal belief. So I think it's really important, and that became the core value at Club Wealth, that we really have to focus on what's important, not what's interesting today.
So Sandy Stites asks a question: as the number one successful real estate team in the country, and now as the number one real estate coaching company in the team space, how do you adjust your mindset and deal with the quote unquote haters or people who want to see you fail?
It's funny. I used to let it get to me in a big way. I'll give you an example. In 2007, we picked a fight with our State Department of Licensing, right? If you're in California, it's like the BRE or whatever. So we sued them. They were breaking the law, and we sued them. I was very arrogant, very idealistic, and I love to do this, right? Like, if I see something that's not right, by golly, I'm going to go take care of it. I'm going to fix it. And it's a lot like when, have you ever seen that video with the woman with the nail in her forehead, right? It's actually a hilarious video. You should watch it.
Great video.
It is, right? Like, all I wanted to do is address the nail. And it's like, she just wants to be listened to, right? Well, when I see somebody doing wrong, I want it fixed. It frustrates me. And I had to learn the hard way that you can be right or you can be rich. And you got to pick one. Well, back in 2007, I chose to be right, and I sued our State Department of Licensing, and I beat them. And let me tell you, that was the beginning of the end of my real estate career, because all I did was manage to poke a sleeping bull, man. And let me tell you, I got the horns in the end, literally. Like, these guys were not messing around, and they spent 3 years trying to find a way to get me out of the business legally. And when that failed, when we beat them in court every single time, what did they do? They just freaking got us to a point where we realized, look, we're either going to run out of money or I'm going to have a heart attack. Either way, I can't keep doing this. And so Tara and I discussed, getting out of the business. Well, in that process, and during the time from 2008 to 2009, where our business went from about 400 deals a year to over 100 transactions a month, well over 100 transactions a month, we delivered terrible customer service to the agents in our market. We pissed everybody off. I mean, literally, our attitude toward the agents was that they were an annoyance, because they would call and ask stupid questions like, is it still for sale? Well, what's it say in the multiple? Or what's the price on that one? Well, what's the MLS say? Or how do I write an offer? Well, the instructions are in the listing, right? It's like, literally, we had a full and a half time position devoted to nothing but answering stupid agent questions all day long. And here's the problem: because I kept saying the words stupid agent questions, guess what my team started to say? Stupid agent. All they heard from me was stupid agent all day long. And all they did was treat agents out there like stupid agents when we should have been treating them like clients. And we didn't do that. So deservedly so, we got a terrible reputation in our market. And recently, we had an event that we're actually promoting here in the Seattle market. I just thought, it's been a long time since we've done anything for the agents here. Maybe we can put a few agents in a room together, do an event, and bring them some value. Oh my gosh, man. My team's been calling agents in Seattle. Anybody that was here back in that period of time, they all freaking hate me. I mean, it's funny because when we went through that fight, there was a lot of negativity. A lot of agents would post really negative things about me. And the kicker was, they would post negative things about my wife, whom I knew they'd never met. They'd never met me either or spoken with me. But they would post negative things about my wife, about her physique, about things about her that had zero to do with real estate. And I'm thinking to myself, are you kidding me? Did that really just come out of this person's mouth? And it began to break my heart because of what it was doing to her. Well, then fast forward to now. And by the way, my way of dealing with it then was, guess what? More of this, right? I got frustrated. I got angry. I'm like, you're a jerk. Why would you say that? And today, my approach is completely different. So today, as our team is making these calls, they're getting some of this feedback, and there's some agents here that especially the bigger producers, they're like, oh yeah, I get that, yeah, I saw that, I witnessed that, I actually reviewed that, I went through it, I understand what happened, and they're pretty cool with everything. But the agents that research it are. But what's interesting is there's still a lot of haters out there. So today, the way we deal with those haters is we just don't worry about it. At the end of the day, there's always going to be haters. And it's interesting because I never try and defend myself with the haters now. I've just gotten to a point where I'm just like, you go ahead and hate. But what's cool is we've got so many wonderful clients and friends through Club Wealth that they go in there and they defend. Man, this gal that we were doing this event, and this one gal got on there and she started being like, oh, this guy lost his license and you're an idiot if you follow him and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, like 20 people just jumped on her. Like, I felt bad for this gal, legitimately. Like, I felt like this gal's about to get lynched in the alleyway. And they're just like, you have no idea who you're talking about. These are the best people in the world, and they've helped us tremendously, and they're great family people, and they're honest, and all this other stuff. And we just didn't say a word. So that's how I'd handle it differently today.
Yeah, so it's always people remember how you make them feel. So those stupid agent comments and all of that, people always remember how you made them feel.
That's right.
I want to go backwards just a little bit because we've heard some of this story, some of your story before. A lot of us know that. But a couple of questions for you. What age did you break 1 million?
Ooh, I don't know when that was first. It would have been around, I don't know how old I was.
I mean, I know you're 60. Now.
Oh, wow.
Let's go back.
Wow. Did Tara put you up to that? That was awesome. Yeah. Okay. And this, I know there's some gray hair coming in here. Okay. So, yeah, it's from you guys, by the way. It's from the two of you.
By the way, I'm officially the oldest guy on this call.
Yeah, you are.
So, let's see. It started off, I think the first year I broke 1 million in GCI would have been, man, that's a good question. I'm going to say it probably wasn't until early 2000s. The first year that we broke, the year that we started consistently doing 100 deals a month was about 2008.
Okay, so that was as a team, not as an individual agent.
Oh, yeah. 100 transactions a month as an individual agent, I don't even know that that's even possible.
Okay. At what point did you decide that it's time to form a team? And there's two parts to that question. And were you afraid of it? What were you scared of?
I was afraid of it. Yeah. So it was my first, it depends on what you define as a team. So hiring an assistant was my first major hurdle, right? And my first assistant happened to be Tara. And I always tell people I had a coach back then, right? So my first 2 years in the business, didn't have a coach, struggled, working 100 hours a week, really struggling. Then I hired Mike Ferry. Everybody knows Mike. Great coach, right? Taught me how to pick up the phone, taught me how to prospect and how to, dial for dollars, and really did a good job of helping me understand that. And that made a huge difference in my career. One of the other things that Mike taught me that was very valuable for me was the importance of having an assistant. In fact, I credit him for the first time. I think he's the one that first coined the phrase, if you don't have an assistant, you are one, right? And I got to tell you, I believe it. And so I hired an assistant when I got back from my mission. I hired Tara. This essentially how I met Tara.
Ooh, a little funny business going on, huh?
I'm telling you, she worked for me for about 4 years. That's when I went, that's when we got married and I went to work for her, right? So you guys know, I always tell people, any man that says he wears the pants in the family probably lies about other things too. But anyway, that said,
we're going to leave it at that.
That said, so I hired Tara, but I hadn't hired a team yet. And here's kind of where it started. For me, it was organic, right? The teams weren't really a thing back then, right? Abacuses, they were popular, and stone tablets were popular, but teams weren't really a thing yet. And so for me, it was organic, right? Brian's got to mute Facebook out there. We're getting Facebook on the background there, Brian. But anyway, that being said, the next position I hired was actually a showing assistant. So I hired Tara, and then I hired my dad. And the reason I hired my dad is because Tara was doing all the buyer appointments, I was doing all the seller appointments, and Tara was getting too busy. And so I hired my dad, who was retired at the time, looking for something to do, wanted to just make a little extra income. So I hired him as a showing assistant for Tara. He didn't do any closing or anything like that. And then her production started going through the roof. And she was being a buyer's agent and working as our administrative assistant. Then we hired another admin. And then we started to realize, okay, I think we're on to something here. And so we started hiring agents. And as we started to grow the agent side, things just took off. And it was just game over from there.
So how much of your business, so we hear a lot about your, I think you said it was 750 listings at one point that was active or pending that you had at one time.
Yeah.
How much of that was REO and how much of that was not?
So only about half of my business was ever REO at any given time. And a lot of people like to say, oh, well, it's different for him because it was all REO. No, it wasn't all REO. It's only about 50%. Now, that being said, I do believe that REO and short sales need to be part of everyone's business. I think that these are things that help us balance out when we go into declining markets, and we're going into a market shift now. And so these are parts of the business that help you kind of keep an even cash flow throughout rising and falling markets. That being said, the majority of our business was retail. And so retail business, I mean, there's a million ways to get it, but I would tell you this. Every single person watching this right now needs to be thinking, if I want to net $1 million a year, I need 25 lead sources. If I want to net $1 million a year, I got to have 25 lead sources, and they need to be diverse. I cannot have all my business coming from one place, because if it's all coming from one place, or even if it's coming from 3 or 4 places, one of those places goes away, my income drops substantially. That's like having 4 buyer's agents on your team. That's a disaster waiting to happen, because 2 or 3 of them get together and decide they're going to go start their own team. You're screwed, right? So that's why if you're going to grow a team, you want to get to 15, 20 agents as fast as you can without going broke. And then, it takes some time for the income to catch up. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. So those 25, you say 25. Back then, was it 25?
For me, no. The most I actually ever had on my team, and this is another hard lesson learned, was 16 at one time. And so I shouldn't say that. That's not true. I had 18 was the most I ever got to. But generally, I was bouncing back and forth between 12 and 18 buyer's agents. And here's why. Because I didn't have the time to go really devote the resources, time, effort, and energy necessary to recruiting. If I had it to do over again, there's a couple of things I would do differently in my business. Number one, I'd treat agents in my market better. That's the single most important lesson that I got out of the mistakes I've made is be nice to everybody, take care of everybody, treat everybody like clients. And that was a hard lesson to learn and an expensive one. Number two, don't freaking sue the state, right? That's another.
Was that number one or number? Was that number one?
That's number one. I don't know. They're both up there, right? But I wouldn't do that, right? Don't sue the state. And then number three, the third one would be I would have started recruiting a lot earlier and a lot heavier early on. There's no substitute for recruiting, and there's no question that I needed to have done a lot more of it. I had enough leads coming in. Think about the numbers here. I had 6,352 buyer leads coming in, sign calls per month coming in. Sign calls. Do the math on that. That's enough sign calls for 159 buyer's agents. Think about that. There is no way on this planet I could have possibly hired enough buyer's agents. There's no way. And so, and now part of my challenge in hiring buyer's agents was that I pissed them all off, right? Because I was so if I hadn't done that, and if I had instead treated everybody with kindness, treated everybody with love, treated them like they were a client, and made recruiting a higher priority, oh my gosh, we would have hit 3,000 transactions 5 years earlier, no question.
How'd you get into REO?
Well, that's a very important question. So first of all, everybody should be thinking about this question, right? How do I get into REO? There's not a lot of REO out there right now. So why would I even care about REO? Because it's another piece of what constitutes the balance in your business. So I got into REO late. I actually got into REO in late 2007. when everybody said, "Oh no, it's too late. It's already happening." And actually, I think back, it was early 2008. I think is when I actually got into REO. But what happened was I started going to events that centered around REO and default and that sort of thing. And I got to know agents that were having success in REO. And so I didn't go right after the asset managers. Instead, what I did was I was careful, I was calculated, and I went through to these events, and I'd go in the lobby of these events, and I'd stand. I remember one of them was a REOMAC event. It was at the Palm Desert JW Marriott. And in the lobby, they've got this mezzanine, and I stood up on the mezzanine, and I looked down in the lobby bars right there, and that's where everybody would hang out and talk and stuff. I didn't even go to the classes. I literally just hung out there in that bar, or I should say in the mezzanine overlooking the bar, and I would watch. I wasn't talking to anybody at this point. I just literally watched that room, and I looked to see who were the people that everybody went up to, not the people that were going up to everybody, but who were the people that everybody else was coming to talk with, etc. And I figured out who they were. I made notes. I took pictures. I know this sounds creepy, but dude, I was like game on with this. So I'm up there taking pictures from up above, figuring out who these people were. I figured out who it was, and I went down and I got to know them one at a time. And I didn't make any commitments at this point. I just reached out, got to know them, figured out who they were, and I figured out what they needed, what was important to them. Once I figured out what was important to them, then I could go get what was important to them through another conversation somewhere. And as I did that, I started bringing value to people that were really well connected. And guess what those really well connected people did? They got me connected. And before long, I was the most connected person in REO. And everybody, it's fun. Like, you have to talk to Mike Bjorkman. He'll tell you. One day, the way Mike Bjorkman and I met, he was in a room, and he had all these asset managers and agents kind of around him, and he was kind of holding court, if you will. And, they were all interested in what he had to say. So I walk in the room, and literally, one by one, all of the people that were talking to him and the people that were in the other parts of the room would start migrating over to me. And before you know it, I had this big group of people, and he was standing there with Maggie, who was the gal that worked with me. And he looks at Maggie and he says, "What just happened? Who is this guy? Like, well, he just totally stole my mojo. What just happened here?" And it was not because I was anything special. It was because I sought out the best connected people, and I sought to bring them value before getting any value from them. And that's how I got into REO.
Let me kind of point out something, because it's interesting, and I say that it's defining sales, because a lot of people, sales is getting someone to do what they want so I can make more money. However you define sales, to me, sales is two people learning to communicate in a way that we can both win. And that's what sales is about for me, because again, if I win and the other side doesn't win, that's not a win for me, because ultimately, at best, that's a short-term relationship that I have no leverage over. But I hear people all the time, and if I put 100 agents in the room, I bet you, they couldn't hear each other's answer. And you say you make a phone call, or you talk to somebody, what's the number one goal? I want to say that 98% of those people will say the number one goal is to make an appointment. And by the way, that is a great goal. There's nothing wrong with that. However, here's what I heard as you told that story. Step one for you was connect and build rapport.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing. Michael didn't say, "Hey, I found this really neat trick, and then I bribed him, and I did this, and I did this." He said, "I built rapport with people, and then I found out what their needs were, and then I found a way to fill their needs. Oh, and then by the way, I got a whole bunch of business." So, you can take that same microcosm and do that the same way. An agent's interviewing for your team. Step one, build rapport with them. And to your point earlier, you didn't have a lot of rapport with some of the agents in your market, or maybe you had some very negative rapport. I mean, it depends on how you define rapport. But, that's an amazing thing that you say, because here's one of the things that I see people doing all the time, being short-sighted. In other words, well, this agent called me and he was a jerk and I put him in his place. Well, congratulations, you just built an enemy. And now when you go build the team,
that's right.
You know what? Maybe that guy had a bad day and he would have been an amazing team member, but there's no way on God's green earth he's joining your team.
Well, and not only that, but he's going to chase other people away.
Right. Michael, he's a jerk. Every time I talk to him, he yells at me, tells me why I'm wrong, blah, 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 whatever it is. I tell people all the time, when I hang up the phone, you may not want to be in the room because all the things I just didn't say to this person may come out of my mouth. But the truth of the matter is I don't treat people like crap. I don't tell them they're wrong. And, and I hear that you've learned that lesson. That's an amazing thing. You cannot convince or influence anyone. And if you don't hear anything else, anyone, until you build rapport with them. And I congratulate you for you understanding that as a much younger man than we both are today. So
sometimes we learn that because we're intelligent and we learn it, through normal learning. Sometimes people have to be a little bit like me, where we're a little bit more thick-headed, and we have to learn it because somebody kicks us in the, in the place where it really hurts a lot in order to learn it. I mean, that's what happened to me, right? I would love to say that it was me, being, interested in learning at that moment in time. I was not interested in learning. I thought I knew it all at that point in my life. I had no interest in learning from anybody, but you know what? Sometimes God knows better. And sometimes God says, no, you're going to learn this lesson.
Can I ask you a question? You can say no to this. Do you mind if we share the story about Austin that we talked about a couple days ago and Snapchat?
Yeah, let's do it. This is great.
I'm gonna set this up, and here's why I'm gonna set this up this way. To me, this is about why, and Austin, and you guys probably all know Austin if you've followed Club Wealth at all. Is 16 now? Is that correct?
16 years old, yeah.
And Michael created a why for, Austin has a huge why, and I don't think Michael realized how big that why was, but and he got out of his comfort zone. And I think it's a great story to show people that if a 16-year-old can get outside of their comfort zone, if their why is big enough. And, I'd love if you just share that story. And I love Austin. Austin, if you're watching, sorry, bud, but we're about to talk about you.
Well, let's start with this. First of all, you got to understand that Austin is the #1 sales guy at Club Wealth and has been since he was 14 years old. And we have a lot of adults working in sales for us. And I say this, and he gets the same leads everybody else gets. He gets no special treatment. If anything, I'm a lot harder on Austin than I am on anybody.
You are a lot harder on Austin.
Oh yeah. Oh, I whipped that kid. not literally, but but figuratively, I whipped that kid like crazy. And I'll tell you why, because I know what he's capable of, right? And he thrives on that. And but then I of course show afterwards, an increase of love. But that being said, Austin is not. I mean, he's kind of interested in girls. But he's really not like a typical kid. And I'm not saying he's interested in boys. I don't mean that either. But I mean, what I'm saying is he's just got other things that are important to him, like, fishing.
Fortnite.
And Fortnite, fishing, making money. Those are way more important to him than girls at this point in his life. And, I was getting to worry a little bit. I'm like, this kid's got to get out there and get some dating going on. And so and Tara's going to kill me for sharing this, dude. I'm telling you, she's...
Sorry, Tara, my fault.
Yeah, she's totally going to kill me for this. So, Brian, it is totally your fault. That being said, Austin has this girl that was dating a friend of his for a while, and he really likes this girl, real cute kid, nice girl. And Austin, he's been begging me for a long time to get Snapchat. And, here's the deal. Like, I didn't want him to have Snapchat because I don't see any real, benefit out of having Snapchat.
Wait. Tara says, don't you dare. Before we continue, I want you to understand your wife has spoken.
Maybe I'll save this. Austin did something 100% outside of his comfort zone. He's a 16-year-old kid, and he broke outside of his comfort zone to do something because his why was big enough, because he wanted this so bad that he went completely outside of who he is. And I think that, Michael can probably tell story after story after story about how he has personally gone outside of his comfort zone. And again, I'm not going to try and get Michael or Austin or get Tara mad at me. So.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We're down the road. Let's go ahead and finish the story. I'm okay.
Oh, boy.
Listen.
I let you off the hook.
No success in the world.
Situations like this, I ask the most important question in marriage, right? And that's, is this a divorceable issue? And the answer to this one is probably not. So we're going to find out. Sorry,
Tara.
So anyway, So I told Austin, because I didn't think he had a chance in heck at this girl giving him the time of day, right? I just thought, this gal's way out of his league. There's no way. He's too shy. She's too whatever she is. And there's just no way this is going to happen. And so I bet him, I said, and obviously I should have checked with my beautiful and amazing wife first, which clearly I didn't, had a guy moment in weakness. And I told him, I said, so I'll bet you Snapchat, if you can get her to kiss you, I'll let you have Snapchat. And I kid you not, that night, he gets this, this would be like me as a single man getting like Heidi Klum to kiss me. Like, it's just not going to happen, right? Like, it's not even possible. And this freaking kid, I forgot that he can sell anything. And he goes out and he freaking gets her to kiss him. And I'm just like, whatever. All right. Never bet with that kid about a girl ever again.
So the lesson learned is
a 16-year-old about a girl at all.
Well, and he was scared to death of it. And what's really interesting is he had no interest in this whole thing, right? All he wanted was Snapchat. And all his friends are like, dude, like, you just got to kiss one of the hottest girls in school. What is your problem?
Austin is the man.
Yeah, and he's like, no, I got Snapchat. I'm like, what? Who is this kid?
So the lesson there for me is you create a big enough lever and you can move the world, and that's really what Austin did. He wanted this more than anything, which seems a little silly. Maybe we need to refocus his focus, but nonetheless, it's an amazing story of someone who's not even interested in something, but over here, I want this. And again, I apologize if anyone's embarrassed by the story, but I'm proud of him. And I'm proud of the fact that he is just an amazing kid, an amazing person who is willing to do whatever it takes. And
well, the part that there's one other part to that, Brian, is that if you've ever heard Austin ask Michael about Snapchat, the instant response is always no. It's always no. It's always no. It's always no. And he got an opportunity. His dad didn't say no right away. He said, I'll let you do it if. And so he got his foot in the door and then Austin just kicked it open. That's all.
And he did.
And a lot of us don't do that. A lot of us miss so many different opportunities that come our way, all because we're scared for us to, when we get our foot in the door, we're scared to kick the door open. And that's what a 16-year-old did. Yes, could have been hormones. No, it was Snapchat.
That had nothing to do with
that. He wanted Snapchat.
Yeah, he's
been asking for Snapchat for as long as I've known you. And every time I hear him say it.
Terrified to kiss this girl. Terrified. Okay? Seriously, it had nothing to do with the kiss. He was literally terrified of this moment. Had no clue what he was doing period. Like, literally no clue what he was doing. And he figured out. But here's the thing, and I want you guys to think about this in your own lives or on your teams, right? Think about this, because Napoleon said it's amazing what a man will do for a piece of ribbon. Schwarzkopf later, Patton later quoted him as saying that. And it's true, right? These guys will go to war and get shot up for a piece of ribbon. And you guys, you got to think about what really motivates people. Very few people are motivated by hope for gain. Very few people on this planet are motivated by, I want to make more money. We all think that's what it is. We all would like to believe that's what it is, but that's usually not the case. Which, by the way, if you don't believe me, see if when you give someone a raise on your team, if you get more work out of them. You don't. Trust me. You don't. You just pay more money. And that's why I'm saying it's not about the hope for gain. Most people are afraid of fear of loss more than they are for hope for gain. But what you have to find is that lever, like Brian said. You've got to find that thing that is most important to that person, and that takes a lot of work. You have to dig deep into their why. It's usually something in their childhood, like the soccer team for me, right? I didn't get to play soccer because my parents couldn't afford the cleats. I've been bitter about that my whole life, and that's a big part of the reason why I've gone out and gone the extra mile to be successful, because I don't want my kids to have to go through that. I've gone through this exercise with people oftentimes where we dig deep into their why. A lot of times it has to do with child abuse as a kid, or they didn't get enough attention from mom and dad, or whatever it was. They didn't have the things they wanted when they grew up. They want to make sure their kids have a better life. Whatever that lever is, you have to find that lever and you have to push on it to help them have the success that they want and deserve to have.
But you got to be authentic with it. Don't do the fake push, because everyone can smell it a mile away. Some people will do the fake one and they're not authentic with it. So, okay. I got another question for you there.
Yes.
All right. So at Listing Agent Bootcamp, at last year's Business Strategy Mastermind, which we have another one coming up here in just about 2 months. I think we've got 2 months until we're on a countdown now. So if you're not going to be in Anaheim, I don't know what's wrong with you. Be there, be square. But so I got a question for you. You say in both of those, I've heard you say, and all of us, all 400 of us that have been in the room, we've heard you say this before, is that it will work in your market. Why do you believe that what you are saying and what you are teaching and coaching and training everyone on and consulting with everyone with will work in their market? Why do you believe that?
Let's start
There's
with
so many different markets, Michael.
People,
remember this. There's so many different markets.
Oh my gosh.
There's so many different markets.
I'll tell you right now, you drop me, Brian, Cherie, or any number of rock stars at Club Wealth into any market in this country, and we're going to be the #1 agent in that country inside of 12 months. Mark my words. It blows me away that people use that won't work in my market as an excuse for poor performance, and that's all it is. It's an excuse to perform poorly. You know what? At the end of the day, it will work in your market. I mean, look at Josh Solinger, right? Here's a perfect example. Josh Solinger's in Ladera Ranch, California, high-end market, right? And we tell him, hey, you need to go do massive open houses. Everybody else across the country in these high-end markets constantly loves to say, oh, I don't want to do massive open houses. That won't work in my market because I work luxury. Well, good for you. You know what? That's awesome. So you're broke just like the agents that don't do a lot of anything else, right? So I quit with the excuses. And so Josh says, you know what? I'm going to trust Michael. I'm going to believe the system. I'm going to work the system. And he did. And he went out, and last year he sold, this year he sold, I want to say it was 8 homes, and that doesn't sound like a lot to you, but wait for the punchline. He sold 8 homes from open houses this year alone, and he's got a bunch of people in the pipeline as a result of them. Average sales price, $1.5 million. Don't tell me it won't work in your market. There's a lot of things like that. Now, are there certain things we need to adjust from market to market? Sure, absolutely. We massage things, we change things, we customize them to fit different markets. But the reality is, the vast majority of things we teach work in the vast majority of the markets out there. And if you think yours is different, you better get a coach with Club Wealth, because that's the only thing that's going to save you from dying on the vine in your market, because all you're doing right now is mentally screwing yourself into believing that it won't work in your market. Sorry, is that calm enough? I get a little passionate about this one. It's like, don't tell me it won't work in your market. Then you know what? Then prove me wrong. Go to some market where you think it will work, or let me come to your market and I'll show you it'll work. But then you're going to be paying me.
I think that the agents who always say it's not going to work in my market, it's not going to work in my market, are the ones who are not going to be around when the market shifts, because they're not used to making adjustments. So will it work the same exact way? No, but there's pieces of this that you take and you still just go do it. Go do it. Make the shift. You try it this way. Okay, that didn't quite work. So let me look at how this how everything came about. Okay, I need to make a couple of little changes here. Make those changes and then go do it and do it better. That's the thing. People just don't understand that when shifts happen, you make adjustments. Just make the adjustment when the shift happens and keep on going.
I'll give you a perfect example, and I won't mention her name because we've constantly been this throughout my career. But there was a woman in my market that when I was selling real estate would criticize me for doing short sales. And would say, why would you do short sales? That doesn't make any sense. Those are wasted time. It's all this work for not a lot of money, blah, 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 blah. Guess who got her house foreclosed on in the next 12 months, right? And by the way, it was a $4 million house. Sorry, right? But the fact of the matter is, you've got to learn the market. And I feel bad for her. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be callous or insensitive. I'm just frustrated because the people that like to poke fun at people that are having success are the very people that are so insecure they can't get out of their comfort zone and learn something new. Be secure in yourself. Have some self-confidence. Try something new today. Do something that scares you today. Because if it doesn't scare you, guess what? You're probably not growing. And if you're not growing, everybody else around you is, and you're going backwards.
Let me tell you what I tell my team about short sales. So I think we put 3 short sales under contract this weekend, where there's not a whole lot of short sales out there. And when it's the 3 separate agents put 3 separate short sales under contract this weekend. And when they first came to our team, they would not even show them. I'm not going to show them. It's a short sale. It takes too long to close. Well, since then, of course, they've kind of adopted what I've said in reference to short sales. And I always say, I love short sales in June. June is the perfect month for short sales for me. You know why? Because it's a December paycheck.
That's right.
Christmas time, baby. I love June short sales. Agents these days don't believe in pipelines. They don't see it. They only go for what's right there, that low-hanging fruit. They miss the follow-up. They don't continue to do it. You've said it countless of times that fortunes is in the follow-up, you know, and a lot of agents don't do that. I think back to 2000 when I was back doing mortgages, I had, even though I had to have paper folders, I have paper folders in my drawer with each month that was there and when I was supposed to call. This is how I organized everything. And I stayed on top of it. I started with a pipeline, always believed in a pipeline. So please don't drop the ball when it comes down to that. Speaking of, we only got a couple more minutes left, but speaking of follow-ups, Michael, what do you think is the ideal follow-up plan? You've been through the market adjustment. We've heard so many different things. What do you think is an ideal follow-up plan?
Well, I believe in being over-aggressive about follow-up, because here's the reality. The reality is most agents are going to screw up follow-up anyway. And if you're over-aggressive, what's the worst thing that can happen? They're going to say no. Well, if you don't follow up, it's a no anyway, right? I mean, you're not going to get the business. You might as well follow. I'd rather follow up crappy than, you know, but do too much of it than be perfect at follow-up and only do it once. Likewise, I'd rather have 5 of my people on my team following up with the same person than nobody following up with them. Now, is it ideal to have 5 people on my team following up with the same person? No, that's not ideal. But it beats the alternative of they don't get any follow-up. And so for me, I've always believed in the 3-3-3, right? It's 3 times a day for the first 3 days, 3 times a week for the next 3 weeks, 3 times a month for the next 3 months. Now, are there more sophisticated follow-up programs and regimens that make more sense than that? Sure. But it's easy to remember, and it's simple, and it's something that most, you know, that just about anybody can do. And so start with that. And when you've done that and you got good at that, then we'll teach you some more sophisticated stuff. But right now, just do that. Awesome. So I think Brian's like, yeah, just do that. Just do something, right?
Well, and that's really what it comes down to. People are always looking for the perfect plan. You know, they're looking for the perfect CRM and the perfect this and the perfect that. And here's the thing. Is there some places in your business, whether you're a single agent or a team, that you can do better? I'm 100% sure of that. I don't even know who you are, but I'm 100% sure there's something you can improve. But the majority of people fail because they don't have a plan, not because they didn't have the best plan or the perfect plan. They just didn't have a plan. They went out there and went, woo, and oh crap, it didn't work, and none of this stuff works. So, you know, do I use 3-3-3? No, but I'm thrilled that it's simple. And the truth of the matter is, if everybody on my team used 3-3-3 every single day, we would do better than we're doing now. Yep. It's the execution of the plan. You know, what we do, honestly, it's very hard. Let me say that, but ultimately, it's extremely simple. There's no, you know, we're not splitting the atom out there, guys. We're calling people, we're setting appointments, we're showing houses, we're going and listing appointments, writing contracts. It's simple. There's not, you know, sometimes, you know, Michael and I talk about this a lot, but, you know, when we get to tier 3, tier 4, tier 5, been coaching these people for a while, I don't have anything specifically to teach them outside of mindset and solving problems, because the reality is, you know, information is not what's holding us up, by the way, in 2018. There's more information available in 2018 than there's ever been in the entire world. And that is not what's stopping you. It's that application. And if you don't want to learn anything else from Michael, learn this. He went out and did. And he didn't always do it right, by the way. And he'll tell you that. I'm not trying to study, but he did. And, you know, the person who goes out and does will always be outdo the person who has the perfect plan every single time.
You know, I would suggest that every single person on this call, if you only get one thing out of this call, and we do need to wrap up, we got to get on another call, our coach's call. But if you only get one thing out of this call, get this. Err in favor of action. When I was 18 years old, I was still in high school. I was the #1 listing agent in my office, not because I had the best plan. I had no plan. You know what? I had zero plan. I was 18 years old. I didn't know my head from a hole in the ground. But you know what? What I did was I got out there and I worked my freaking butt off. That's what I did. I worked a lot harder than every other agent in that office, and that's why I was successful. So quit freaking talking about it and go do something. You want to be successful? You want to sell some houses? Pick up the freaking phone. Talk to somebody. You want to make more money this year? Knock on a freaking door. Recruit somebody to your team. Take some kind of massive action. It doesn't matter what it is. Just freaking do something besides being an eternal learner. We'll teach you all the stuff you need to know. And yes, we give you great content. We want you to learn from us. We want you to go to the podcast, right? Go to clubwealth.com/TV. Download the podcast. Listen to it when you're on airplanes and that sort of thing, or when you're working out. But when you have time where you're not, where every minute possible, you need to be recruiting or prospecting for business or somehow growing your business, and not just sitting around hoping that you're going to learn some magic pill or automate something in some way that all of a sudden you're going to make a bunch of money and you're going to be able to sit and play freaking Fortnite all day and make money. That, unless your name's Ninja, that's not going to happen. All right. So that being said,
I don't know what that is.
He's like a popular gamer on Facebook. Anyway, he makes $500,000 a year playing Fortnite. He's the only person on the planet that does that. So that being said, you guys, seriously, I appreciate you guys interviewing me today. This was awesome. It was fun for me, and I hope that you guys got something out of it. Hopefully somebody on the call got something out of it. If you think this was valuable, I'd love it if you type into your screen, yeah, this was great, more Michael or more whatever. You're probably saying to yourself, there's no way I'm typing that in. All right, that being said, we got to run. Don't forget to check out our sponsor, and thank you to WiseHire. It's www.wisehire.com/clubwealth. WiseHire.com/clubwealth. Appreciate those guys making this happen for us, and we love them. We use them all the time. And that said, we're going to jump onto the coaches call. Remember, inside each one of you, there really truly is a world-class beast right here, right? Just dying to get out. But you got to choose to let that beast out. You got to make some kind of a decision to do something world-class today. So go do it. Have a great day, everybody.